Hi, everyone. Welcome to the July meeting of Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm Flannery Winchester, CCL's Vice President of Communications, and I am your host for this month's meeting. Please go ahead and introduce yourself in the Q&A so that we can all see it and welcome each other. Let us know where you're joining from and how many folks are there with you if you're watching with your chapter. And we'll drop a link in the chat where you can log your attendance today so that we officially know you are here. And thank you for being here with us on the call. So let's get started. Normally, we start these meetings with national updates, and since we're officially midway through the year, I'm going to give you those updates in the form of a look at our updated 2025 roadmap. So we'll drop the roadmap link in the chat for anyone who would like to pull it up and click through it yourself. And as I'm going through these roadmap updates, please feel free to also share any of your local CCL updates in the Q&A so that they're visible to everyone, and I'll read some of those comments aloud in just a few minutes. So for anyone who hasn't seen this little roadmap graphic, this is something that we started last year to help our volunteers and everyone who has an interest in CCL's work um, to to be able to see what we're up to and understand how, we're taking action in all these different areas of climate policy and how things are going. So we update this quarterly, and we just recently finished the updates for the second quarter of this year. Um, and so this, I'll give you a little window into things we did and the progress we saw in April, May, and June. And this is an interactive roadmap. So if you pull it up yourself, you'll be able to click around and kind of get all of the details. So I'll point out here just a few things on this most recent stretch of road here. So the introduction of the Foreign Pollution Fee Act. So that's this one right here, and there's that interactivity there. You can pop it up and get some more details. But this Foreign Pollution Fee Act was introduced in April. That's something that's a Republican-led climate and trade bill. So we talked about that earlier in the spring when that came out. And you'll also see here we have a little icon for our in-district drop-offs. So everything that we gathered in terms of constituent comment forms at Earth Day and spring tabling, we organized lots of local drop-offs for those in the spring. But then it's pretty clear that our heavy focus over the last couple of months has been all of these, you see all of these purple icons here. That's all of our work trying to protect the clean energy tax credits from repeal. And I know that obviously folks have been following this very closely and you've been taking action all throughout this process. So I'm not going to rehash exactly what each of those milestones is about, but suffice it to say that you showed up with robust outreach to Congress and specifically to congressional Republicans every step of the way. So before the House committees had released their draft language, we were talking to the House committees. After that language came out, we were asking for changes and talking to the whole House before the House vote. And then over on the Senate side, before the Senate committees had their draft language, after that language came out, before the full Senate vote, before the final House vote, just every step of the way, we were right there and working for better outcomes. So thank you for continuing to show up and to fight for those better outcomes. And again, just a little reminder to keep dropping your local CCL efforts and wins in the chat because I know that there's so many incredible, creative and encouraging ways that you guys showed up locally within your chapters and around your states to help those efforts. So I want to be able to celebrate some of those highlights of what you guys did to bring those numbers to life. And the last little feature of the map I'll draw your attention to is this signpost over here at the left that says full repeal of tax credits. And then you see this road closed sign blocking that direction. So we've put that on the map because that's a key takeaway here. Obviously, we're not happy that the ultimately the bill that passed did roll back the tax credits so much. But we are crystal clear that our advocacy work on this helped avoid the worst outcome. And so Jen will talk about this a little bit more in just a few minutes. But again, we're so grateful to everyone who took action as part of this effort over these last few months. And so if you ever need or want to reference all this work that we did, all the different ways and places that we mobilized, the details are in the pop-ups in this interactive map. So that's our updated roadmap. There's also, it's on CCL Community if you want to find it there. And we'll continue to keep that updated as we go through the rest of the year. All right, so let me pull up your local wins and successes that you've been mentioning here. Oh, I see everybody introducing themselves. Thank you for being here. Um, let's see. Oh, okay. Chat is disabled. Okay. Well, I'm gonna trust. I know that you guys have been doing incredible things out in the field. You're welcome to drop those in the Q&A if you want. Local wins if you want to put them in the Q&A feature, and we can circle back to those in a little bit. All right, so I will hand it over now to Ricky Bradley for a little conference update, because that is sort of where we are looking ahead on the call this month is that we're about to be in DC. So Ricky takes the reins as CCL's interim executive director starting next week, and he's going to share a little bit more about what we're looking forward to at our summer conference in Lobby Day next week. So Ricky?
Thank you, Flannery. Thank you so much for that introduction. If you don't know it already, that we have over 860 people registered from all across the country to be with us next week in Washington, D.C. A special shout out to a few states that are really having a strong showing. We have 72 people coming all the way from the West Coast in California. Great to see that. 42 from Michigan, 37 from Illinois, and 25 from Texas. So thanks for those states for showing up. But we got people coming from far away as well. We have 6 people coming from Alaska, 3 from Hawaii. So just imagine what that travel schedule is like for those folks. So super excited that they're coming. And, lots of people from nearby DC as well. Big, strong showing from the DC area and our Northeast states. And we got some folks from red states as well. In the Deep South, we got 11 from Alabama. Good work for Alabama crew. 12 in Arkansas. That's exciting to see and hear. And then 7 from Louisiana as well. So it's really good news. And, we also should celebrate some of the smaller states that have doubled their registration compared to last year. And that would be North Dakota, who went from 1 to 2 people attending the conference from last year to this year. So special shout out to our folks in North Dakota. Thanks so much for doubling your registration year over year. That's great. And it's just exciting to see the energy. Being on the group leader calls over the last couple of weeks, you can feel the energy building. And it's just, this is an event like nothing that I've ever attended before. And I'm so excited to see everybody coming. I like to think back to my first conference, and if it is your first time coming, you're gonna, I think, reflect back on the friendships that you make. I remember the very first CCL volunteer I met was Kate Hale Wilson, and little did I know it at the time, I was sitting right in front of my future boss, Madeline Para, who was sitting right behind me. And that first time I walked into, I can't remember the name of the hotels in Crystal City over in Virginia, but I remember that vividly to this day. I remember feeling like an imposter, like what am I doing here amongst all these people that know so much more about this issue than I do, until I heard this voice from across the other side of the room. Is that Ricky Bradley? And it was Mark Reynolds, who had never laid eyes on me before, but had recognized my voice. And it just drove home to me a few things: the value of relationships, the inclusiveness that you feel in the room. And I realized at that moment and several other moments throughout the conference and the lobby day that I didn't have to be perfect, that I belonged there, and that one of the things that CCL does so well is we embrace our imperfect allies. And so that was just a neat moment for me. I want to give you a little overview of what we'll be doing at the conference. So on Sunday night, we have a screening arranged of a documentary about America's national parks. And we'll have a panel of CCL volunteers sharing their experiences about organizing local film screenings. I love the national parks. That is really where I discovered the fact that climate change was happening at the Glacier National Park. So it's really near and dear to my heart. And I'm looking forward to seeing this documentary on Sunday night. On Monday, we have a jam-packed conference day. So everything we used to have into 2 days, we're jamming it all into one. I'm especially excited to hear from Amanda Ripley, who's going to be our keynote speaker. She is the author of High Conflict and the founder of an organization called Good Conflict, who right now I don't think their message could be more timely or essential to how we navigate the fractured political landscape that we have today. So her insights promise to really challenge and equip us as we hit the hill the next day. Of course, we'll have lobby trainings. We've had lots of lobby trainings already. We'll continue to do that. We want everyone to feel prepared before they hit the hill. We'll have breakout sessions, of course, dinner, drinks, meetups for all different types of all different groups. I know there's a conservative happy hour that's being arranged, and also another team dinner for the people, the global majority, and other affinity groups. So glad to see that that's happening. And then on Tuesday, we're going to go to Capitol Hill. We're going to get our picture made first, right? We always do that. And then we're going to hit the hill for a day of lobbying, which Jenn and Mindy are going to tell us a little bit more about in just a minute here. One thing to note that's different from this year's conference and in years past is that it will not be live streamed this year. So we really encourage you to follow us on social media to see updates and photos and all sorts of behind the scenes fun that will be happening. So I'm so looking forward to just being together, just refueling our energy, lifting each other up, and renewing our shared commitment. To me, that's really what matters most is the optimism and the relationships and that I get out of that room. So I'm excited to see everybody. And wow, we're just a week away now. So we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ricky. And I did see a few local CCL wins pop up in the Q&A. So shout out to Lorain County, Ohio. They had 3 letters to the editor published this month. I saw the Golden Jefferson chapter say they've got 3 folks from their chapter going to the lobby day in DC. And the Northeast Tennessee chapter has been busy with Grass Tops engagement. They made 35 new contacts in the past 3 weeks in the Grass Tops area of their work. So awesome. Thanks everybody for everything you're doing out in the field. All right, so now we will turn to our featured guests for this month. So since we're heading to the Hill in just over a week, we wanted to hear from our very own government affairs team. So we'll start off with a discussion with CCL's Vice President of Government Affairs, Jenn Tyler, and then we'll turn to her colleague, Mindy Aller, who is our Congressional Liaison Program Manager. So Jenn, welcome. I wanted to start off with some of your thoughts and reflections on the whole budget reconciliation process that Congress just wrapped up and that we, of course, lobbied hard on for months. I'm sure that, folks are feeling some disappointment that this bill made it into law with such significant rollbacks to the clean energy tax credits, and they're sort of wondering, where do we go from here? So can you share some of your thinking about what this sort of tells us about Congress or how this might inform our advocacy going forward?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, I want to thank everyone for joining the call, and I echo Ricky's thoughts. I'm super excited to see everyone in a week. But yeah, I think we're going into this conference. I certainly am. With a little bit of disappointment in what just happened, and I think it makes total sense to be disappointed. We worked incredibly hard. You guys made so many calls, so many emails, had lobby days, did so much outreach, and for the bill to not end up in a place where we could be supportive and was really harmful to clean energy, that's extremely disappointing. That being said, in the larger frame of what happened, this was happening in every issue area. It wasn't a climate specific thing. It happened with Medicaid. It happened with nutrition assistance. It was clear that the outpouring of opposition or support for other policies was not as strong as some of the political force that was at play in this bill. That being said, with how disappointing it is, I do think as it was going on, there were some things that I noted that I think were encouraging, and we really do need to stop and take notice of, because I think we're going to be able to build on some of these things. The first is that, as Flannery, you mentioned before, the final bill was a lot better than the first version. So if you'll remember, even at the beginning of the Congress, Republicans were saying, we're just going to completely repeal the IRA, outright repeal. And the House bill was similar to that. The first bill that the House released and then passed was a pretty quick repeal of most of the clean energy tax credits. And that was pretty jarring for a lot of us. We had been lobbying on the House side. You guys had done a great job reaching out to those members, but we realized at that moment we have to go even harder. We have to reach out more. We have to do more. And so we pivoted to the Senate side. And because of your outreach, and of course, industry's outreach, and there were other groups involved as well, but I think largely because constituents like you are making your voices heard, the Senate went in a very different direction. It still didn't end up being great for clean energy, but it preserved a lot of those clean energy tax credits much longer. It did give a longer runway for things like solar and wind. And even at the last minute, when a really toxic provision was put in to add an additional tax on solar and wind, our last minute advocacy took that off the table. So even though the bill wasn't great in its final iteration, it was much better than it could have been because of our outreach. I also want to note that throughout the process, we had a lot of different letters coming out from Republicans on clean energy provisions, advocating for these tax credits, saying how important they are to their district. And, you know, if you had told me even 6 years ago, we would be seeing some of these more conservative Republicans come out and say, I support all of these different tax credits, the battery storage tax credits, even solar and wind, I would not have thought you would get that public display of support this soon. And so even though their vote in the long run and the bill in the long run wasn't what we were looking for, it's clear that we are generating that support in Congress. It's there. They're willing to step out publicly and make those proclamations. And so we lost this immediate battle of this bill, but clearly we're building a foundation. We're in this for the long haul and we're going in the right direction. And the last thing I want to mention, just for context, is reconciliation is a really partisan process. You know, this bill is obviously very different from the Inflation Reduction Act. We supported that previous reconciliation bill because it was so good on climate, but the processes were not all that dissimilar. It's a partisan process where the party determines what their goals are. Party leadership, the administration, puts a lot of influence into Congress of what they want to pass. And usually the party gets behind it, other than a few votes. That's what happened on the IRA. That's what happened with this bill. And so we know that when there's a partisan process, it's really hard to influence and shape things that are going to be durable. That's why the IRA is now under attack. It's not durable when it's one party pushing things forward. But we have seen that when there's bipartisan opportunities, like the infrastructure bill, a lot of different bills, the Growing Climate Solutions Act, when it's bipartisan, it's able to stand the test of time. And so that's what we're looking at going forward. We're obviously going to engage whenever it matters, including on bills like this one, but we're going to push for those bipartisan opportunities to really move climate forward and keep it in place.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for that perspective, Jen. I don't know about y'all. I always feel better when I hear Jen tell us how to think about things. So Jen, I wonder, can you also comment on the timeline of it all? Because reconciliation usually takes a while, but this one feels like it surged forward pretty quickly by comparison with the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I think, yeah, it's only July. That was pretty quick. Also, these 7 months have felt like, 7 years in some respects. So, yeah, it was quicker than the Inflation Reduction Act, certainly. And I think that shows, some of the influence that the administration has, party leadership has. They were able to get all of their members in alignment and pass it. The Inflation Reduction Act took over 18 months for all the Democratic members to get on board and have enough votes to pass. So definitely was quicker than we thought. We were hoping to be able to lobby on the bill during our lobby day, but it did pass and was signed into law on July 4th. That being said, this is an important window, I think, for us to still engage on it and let our voices be heard. So we're kind of pivoting to the next step, which is just as critical, I think, as what came before.
Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Where does this leave us now in terms of what we're going to lobby on, what we're going to focus on with Congress when we go into our lobby meetings on the 22nd?
Yeah, the first thing is that, we don't want to just let this bill go. We don't want to just let this pass and, move on to other topics completely. This is a really critical window to let members of Congress know that constituents are watching, we're watching as climate advocates, and we really care. When I was on the Hill, there was this window after a vote of a few weeks where we'd pay attention to the calls and the emails and see, did this resonate? Are people paying attention? Or was this fine? No big deal. And so we want to take advantage of that window. We want to let them know what we think of the bill, what we want to happen going forward. We want to really, one, change these harmful provisions, two, prevent any additional harmful provisions, and make things more stable for clean energy going forward. But we don't just want to be reactionary. So while we do have an ask on this specific reconciliation bill and the clean energy tax credits, we're thinking more broadly, what else is there that is next? The next most important things that the Congress can do on climate is permitting reform, as well as funding some of these key clean energy programs that President Trump has proposed to cut. So we're going to focus on not just how do we respond to this immediate vote, but also what are the other important things? And all of these asks that we're thinking of that are the most important things that Congress can really take a hold of the remaining of this Congress are all clean energy focused. So we're going to have a clean energy themed primary ask for every single member, Republican and Democrats. It'll be framed with different language, but we're really going to take our message to the Hill, let them know that clean energy is important, not just for climate, not just for emissions, but for energy costs, for American competitiveness, and overall for the success of our economy as a country. So I think it's going to be a really important ask to make, not just following up on this reconciliation process, but I also think it's going to be really resonant with members right now who are thinking, what are my constituents thinking about everything happening right now? We're going to go and let them know exactly what we're thinking.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's what we do so powerfully and uniquely is talk to just about all of Congress in one voice, in one day. That's so cool. Um, okay, do we have any secondary asks? Folks who have been around us for a while might know that we often have a primary ask and then secondary asks that are for smaller portions of Congress. So can you speak to those?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, our primary ask is going to be that clean energy themed ask, but we are still looking at all of the different avenues for climate policy this Congress. And one of the most promising ones outside of those larger areas of clean energy permitting reform is forestry. We've seen the Fix Our Forest Act move through the House, and it's kind of a mesh between forestry and permitting reform legislation. It passed the House. It then was referred to the Senate. There's a really positive Senate bill that was introduced, a Fix Our Forest Act on the Senate side, a bipartisan bill. It made some really critical improvements to that House bill. So the bill's gotten even better. It's being improved upon. It's gaining more bipartisan support in the Senate. And so that is going to be our secondary ask, the Fix Our Forest Act, for all of the Senate. And then also for House Democrats. When it does ideally pass the Senate with our support after we advocate, we want to make sure House Democrats are ready to support it. So that's going to be our secondary ask. We are going to have an optional ask on the Foreign Pollution Fee Act and CBAM legislation, foreign pollution tariff legislation. That's a policy we've worked on for many, many years. It was a part of our original carbon pricing platform, a CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism, and now there's legislation out there. So we're going to ask, it's an optional ask, but if you have a Republican member who you think appreciates that specific policy or area, that's an optional ask to bring up to look at foreign pollution fee tariff legislation and to start giving it a look, see if they can co-sponsor or be a leader on the issue.
Okay, great. And I just glanced at the Q&A and I do see one question that I want to ask because it's related to what you said about the reconciliation process and how that the partisan uh, headwinds are so strong. Paul in the Q&A is asking, what's the best strategy to break through that partisan roadblock? So can you share a little bit about how we think about that landscape?
Yeah, well, part of it is out of our control, right? If you ever have one party that's going to have the House and Senate and the administration, they're going to try to pursue reconciliation. There's no stopping that, and that's not going to be a bipartisan process. We saw Democrats do it, Republicans have done it a few times. It's just what's going to happen. So part of it, there's no real way to change some of the process. That being said, what we can do is while we're going to engage on those partisan processes, like we did with reconciliation, we don't want to let go of all the other avenues and keep pushing Republicans and Democrats to come together. So I do think by having these messages in coordination with our messages on reconciliation, having these other messages on permitting reform, on these clean energy programs that President Trump wants to cut, these things that do have bipartisan support, the more we can lean into that and lead Republicans and Democrats to that issue from a framing that resonates with them, the more they're going to be able to kind of pivot to that. Not let go of the partisan processes, obviously, but they'll have a little more reason to come to that side. And I also think I want to just note it's so important we show up. This is a time when so many groups are not environmental groups are not lobbying on the Hill, and so the more we're able to show that we are truly consistent, we're credible, we're an ally to the climate movement, and ideally to our congressional offices on climate, the better it is. The better it is that there's someone filling that void. If we're not there, it's industry. It's fossil fuel industry in those rooms. So the more we can show up, the more we can make our voices heard, the more we're able to kind of lead them to some of these more important bipartisan climate avenues.
That's great. Okay, well let's wrap up there with that idea of sort of what it feels like, what our lobby day looks and feels like from the office's perspective. Because I know folks on the call, maybe if they've come to a lobby day in the past, they know how it feels to, that energy and the empowerment, what it's like when we're there on Capitol Hill. But I wonder if you can share a little bit more about that, the impact that it makes when regular people like us show up by the hundreds.
Yeah, I've told, I think, stories a lot of when I was on the Hill and what it looked like to see a CCL lobby day. But I'll tell a more recent one. I was just meeting with an office probably a couple months ago about some of this reconciliation stuff, a Republican office, and they were commenting that they just don't hear very much from environmental groups anymore. And they asked, "Are you guys still going to do your lobby day?" Because they'd heard from other groups that they just weren't coming. They weren't going to do their lobby day. And this is a Republican whose staff is very engaged on climate, but the member isn't. But the staff was really saying, where is everyone? They were asking me as a representative of the environmental nonprofit space. And I just spoke for us, yeah, we're coming. And they were super excited. And they said, I'm going to make sure my member gets to see your volunteers. I want to make sure it's a face-to-face meeting because they realize there is this gap right now in folks coming to the Hill. It's a climate specific issue, but I think it's permeating a lot of different areas now where folks are not showing up, and having that direct constituent interaction is so critical, especially right now where there's other forces at play. We have to have this direct conversation about what does this policy mean to us on the ground. So I think I can't overstate how significant it is to show up in these offices, to let the member know where you're from, what part of their community, to create that bond, to create that relationship, and then let them know what this policy means to you. It goes so far in setting a foundation, but also in moving things forward on this really pressing immediate policy that we're working on. So I cannot wait to join everyone. I'm super excited to see the outcome and to hear about all the good conversations. It's a tough time. We're having some tough conversations with offices, but I think it's all going to be for the best. And we're really going to make a lot of headway in showing up in these tough times and making our voices heard. So I can't wait to see everyone in a week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. We'll see you there. And that's all the time we have, unfortunately, for questions for you. We're going to have to move on now to Mindy. But Mindy, welcome. I'm excited to hear from you a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what will happen on Lobby Day. So thanks for being here. And let's jump right in with how many meetings are we having and who are we meeting with?
Yeah, thanks, Flannery. It's great to be here. Our goal is to have over 400 meetings on July 22nd, and that's what we have accomplished in the last couple of years when we've been on the Hill. So we think we can meet that again. So far, we have 296 meetings that we have a time scheduled for. Of those, 143 of them are Republicans, 151 are Democrats, and 2 are independents. And that's 78 meetings in the Senate, 218 meetings in the House. That's just so far. So we're well on our way to our goal of getting 400 meetings.
Fantastic. And just so that everyone on the call understands, these are CCL volunteers arranging these meetings, right?
Yeah, we have over 450 volunteers who help with setting these appointments. I mean, that amazes me every time I think about it. Most of these volunteers are liaisons to the office that they're asking for the appointment, but many others jump in to help where we have gaps because we don't always have a liaison to every office. And also our volunteer state coordinators do a lot to encourage and coordinate these appointment setters in their states. And they also help me with in guiding who to place on which lobby team. So they have a great impact too on creating the best lobby teams that we can for each office.
Fantastic. And for folks who won't be in DC, but they want to support this lobby day, we have a Call Congress action planned that folks can participate in all around the country. So can you share a little bit about that action and why that's helpful for people to call?
Yeah, this is a tradition for us when we are in DC lobbying, and that message will go out to all of our active volunteers the Monday before lobby day. So it's really great if you can call on Monday, the day before we lobby on the 21st, or on Tuesday morning, and just call the office and say, I know you're going to be having a visit from CCL volunteers, and I want you to know that they're representing my views and my concerns as well as your constituents. So I really appreciate your attention to their important asks. Because even for the offices where we don't have a meeting, we still drop off materials. So we try to touch every single office on the Hill. And having that extra support from constituent just helps amplify our message and really adds to the buzz of all the volunteers that are walking around on the Hill on lobby day.
All right. Well, we'll all plan to call. And what if someone is hearing this and they're thinking, okay, I gotta be there in person, but maybe they're not registered yet. What are the options for those folks?
Yep. We do accept walk-in registrations. So if you have a way to get yourself to DC, you are still welcome to walk in and register at the door to participate in our conference and lobby day. At that point, we can't guarantee you'll be put into the lobby meeting with your member of Congress. It's more likely that you would help fill an open seat that's in another meeting, but we always have meetings that are still in need of extra help. So we just ask everyone that is lobbying to take our climate advocate training, which they can either do tomorrow on Zoom or on Monday at the conference. So either way, there's no reason you can't be prepared for our lobby day. And then you just stop by our lobby help table if you've registered on site, and we'll let you know where we have meetings that still need help so you can join us on Capitol Hill on the 22nd.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mindy. And any final advice or tips for maybe our first time volunteer lobbyists out there who are coming to DC?
Yeah. The one thing that I always remind our volunteers is that lobbying is a team sport. So the team works together and helps each other out as you plan and you participate in the lobby meetings. So no one person needs to know everything. We all help each other out, and each team member plays an important role. So whether you're the constituent in a meeting or you are meeting with another state, you still bring a valuable perspective. Our more experienced volunteers help guide our newer volunteers. And if you're nervous or anxious about the meetings, that is perfectly normal. I love to share this video of CCL's founder, Marshall Saunders, talking about his first lobby meeting because it demonstrates the importance of teamwork and that even as ordinary, imperfect human beings, we are still making a big difference and showing up and meeting with all these offices.
Fantastic. Yes, I love that video of Marshall talking about freezing up and being so glad he was in there with a team, people who could back him up.
Yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mindy. We'll see you in just over a week. Thank you for everything you're doing to make this happen.
you're welcome.
All right. Thanks again to Jenn for her insights as well. And I see we've got some questions still open in the Q&A. A lot of them will be answered by either taking a look at our conference program, which is on the website, or our lobby meeting toolkit, which is on CCL Community. So we'll drop those links in there for folks where you can get a lot of those questions answered. All right, so now let's take a look at the actions that you can be working on this month. So, as Mindy mentioned, one major action this month is to call members of Congress to support our lobby day. Oh, let's Josh, can we skip to the first slide about the call-in day, please? So when our volunteers meet with Congress, of course, they don't just speak for themselves, but they represent thousands of constituents back home. So that's why we're asking you to make calls from home and reinforce the message of our lobby meetings. So that way, even if you're not in the room, your voice is still a really important part of this conversation. So we've set a goal, you can see there, of 3,000 calls. So we'll send out the action email on Monday, the 21st. And then we're hoping that you guys can generate a full lot of calls to Congress in time for our meetings on July 22nd. So that action email will link you to a calling tool with a sample script that lets the staffer know you're a constituent, you're part of Citizens Climate Lobby, and the folks coming in for the CCL meeting represent many more local folks like you. So this really amplifies the impact of our lobby meetings, and it will help make sure the offices really take note of our presence and our power and our reach back home. And a related action that you can do either solo or with your chapter is to go ahead and practice persuading a member of Congress based on their MOC profile that you've built. So there are more details about this in the July action sheet. This builds on a past action from a recent month that we had you start thinking about researching your member of Congress, thinking about their familiarity with these different policy ideas and their kind of stance on different things. So essentially, this is an exercise to practice identifying what messages and talking points will be most relevant and persuasive for your particular member of Congress. So I saw a question in the Q&A. Someone was asking, should we make the point that that China is going to kind of eat our lunch on clean energy now, and we need to stay competitive? And so the answer to that is, well, it depends on your member of Congress. There's some members of Congress that might be a helpful point, others maybe less so. So going through this kind of exercise will help you start to practice that and answer those questions. So definitely check that out in the July action sheet. And another action this month is to send press releases about local CCLers traveling to DC. So we've created a new local press release template that will help you tell the media in your area that local folks are going to DC to lobby members of Congress for climate solutions. So you can personalize this template with local specifics. So you'll drop in the names of your members of Congress. You can add quotes from your chapter folks who are going to DC, or people from your state who are going to DC. And there's also spots for some clean energy data specific to your district or your state. And the idea here is that the press release will encourage a reporter to do a story on those CCLers or on your chapter's climate advocacy work. And that helps you with visibility and recruitment in your community. It also shows your member of Congress that you're an influential group. So the July action sheet has several more tips and links to some training resources to support you taking this action if you have questions or want more guidance on how to do that. And speaking of media, we're going to take a few minutes now on the call to do a live action to use social media to start spreading the word about the fact that this event is coming up and folks from all over the country are traveling to DC to lobby for climate solutions. So if you can head to the short URL on the screen here, cclusa.org/live-action, then it will redirect you to a Facebook post. And it's the Facebook post here on the screen. And once you get there, you can click share, and it will prompt you to say something about this. So if you're going to the conference, you can add something like, I'm going to DC as part of this event next weekend. Or if you know folks who are going, you can say, folks from my local chapter are attending this event, and we're going to tell Senator so-and-so about the climate impacts we're facing here in our state. So things like that. Or if you don't want to add a comment, you can just click share now, and it will reshare just CCL's post to your Facebook page as is. So we're going to take 3 minutes now to do this. Let's share these posts and spread the word about this big, unique citizen lobbying push. 3 minutes. All right. Great job, everyone. Thank you for taking that action with us. We've got 2 more quick actions to offer you from the action sheet this month, and then we will wrap up. So something else we'd like you to start working on is to start to plan a CCL social for August. So whether it's a hangout at a brewery or a movie night, a game night, a picnic in the park, we just want you to get creative and get together. Our July action sheet has some more ideas for you. And last but not least, we'd like you to continue with summer and fall tabling opportunities. So our tabling toolkit has fantastic resources for materials you can use and different themes you might use at your tables to draw folks in and get good conversations going about climate and clean energy. So that toolkit, again, is linked in the July action sheet. So that's what we've got for you this month. Thank you again to Jen and Mindy. Thanks to Josh behind the scenes for running tech for us for the first time this month. And thank you all for being here for this month's meeting. So we'll say goodbye now with a little CCL TV, and we will see so many of you in DC next weekend. And after that, we'll be together again for our next meeting on August 9th. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.